I'm Paul Sullivan, your host on the Company of Dads podcast, where we explore the sweet, sublime, strange, and silly aspects of being a lead dad in a world where men often feel they have to hide or at least not talk about their parenting role. I know this from firsthand experience as the lead dad to my 3 girls, 3 dogs, 3 cats, and somewhat improbably 3 fish. I did this all while managing my career and striving to be an above average husband. One thing I know for sure about being a lead dad is it's not a normal role. You're not doing what dads have traditionally done, going to work and leaving the parenting to mom or someone else. Nor are you always welcome into the world where moms are the primary caregivers. But here at the Company of Dads, our goal is to shake all of that off and focus on what really matters: family, friendship, finance, and fun. Today, my guest is Franco Finstad. Franco is a dad at home in Manhattan, as he calls it on his LinkedIn profile. He has twins, a boy and a girl. Before they were born, he was a software engineer for several companies and a musician, trumpet being his instrument of choice. But a funny thing happened on the way to being a lead dad to his twins. While he and his wife, a financial advisor, were in agreement that this was what worked for their family, it's not been without its issues. I mean, what do you do when your wife introduces you to people at a work party and they walk away when you tell them that you're a dad at home? Well, if you're Franco, you think proactively. You figure out what's missing, other lead dads like you, and how to improve how you're received. Turns out, tightens a finance groove on jazz musicians. If that fails, Franco can talk about his real estate portfolio. A few apartments he and his wife Paula own as landlords. But as we lead dads know, words matter, and portfolio gives you cover. Franco, welcome to the Company of Dads podcast.
Hey, Paul, it's great to be here. Love talking about this stuff.
All right, if you were having your best day as a lead dad in New York, what would it entail?
Oh my gosh, best day. You know, waking up, making the kids breakfast, going to the park, finding some other dads to hang out with, you know, whether that's going to Dave and Buster's with the kids or playing sports, having lunch at the pub, coming back, you know, watching a movie, just doing fun kid stuff with some other dads and moms too, but dads is kind of where I'm rolling these days. That would be a perfect day. Just kids playing around and hanging out with other guys. Yeah,
that sounds pretty good. When you know, you've been, you know, the lead dad for your kids are 12-ish, 12 and a half, right?
Yeah, 12.
Yeah, the whole time. So what did you think being the lead dad would be like before you did it? And what has it actually turned out to be?
That's a good question. I thought it was going to be a lot easier, and I thought that I would be more of a hero because not many dads do this. So I thought, I'll be so special. People will think I'm so cool. I'll be accepted everywhere because it's so unique. But the surprise was it was a little more foreign to people, me showing up to all the mom stuff and the nanny stuff, a little more foreign than I thought. So it required me to do a little more work and to dance around and find different stories and different angles to get into the social group, I suppose, and to change my story when I talked to people that I already knew, you know. So it was a little bit of a dance.
You know, when I talked to this fella on an earlier podcast, Brad Klontz, who used to live in Hawaii, which sounds pretty awesome, but Hawaii is, you know, far from everything. He said being a lead dad in Hawaii was really tough because it's a very traditional culture, and it's a traditional culture where moms do a certain thing and dads do a certain thing.
Right.
He lives in Boulder, Colorado now. It's a lot more open. You know, if I were to guess, I would have thought that Manhattan might have been easier to be a lead dad. But what do you think are some of the hindrances that keep men from being accepted as the primary parent in a city as ostensibly sort of, you know, liberal and open as Manhattan?
Well, that's a good point. You know, I've only been a lead dad in Manhattan, but in my normal course of life, all of us, we travel through different, as we travel the world and meet different people, we go through different, I guess, social circles and traditional societies, whether, you know, we visit Asia or we go to Miami and visit the Latin America world down there. And then, you know, so some of my wife's groups are from more traditional societies, I guess would be Latin America. And so I'm able to compare the liberal Upper West Side of Manhattan to those groups. And it is easier here in Manhattan to come out of the closet as a lead dad. But still but still there's some things that I feel are immutable about human nature, that you just can't change no matter how liberal of a neighborhood or social circle you're in. That I don't know, women are just generally most of the time they're primary caregivers, and this is what they do, and they know how to do it. And even in liberal Manhattan, I bump into that. When the classic thing is you go to a park and there's a big group of nannies over there and there's no men around. Even though you're Upper West Side of Manhattan, or if it's a big group of moms, you're the only dad. You got to go in there and start talking to them and like have a inviting, make yourself inviting, and have a good story for them.
Yeah. Do you have like a good icebreaker line when you go into that group?
Oh my gosh, geez, I don't know.
Because I mean, ultimately, you just want your kids to be able to play with their kids, and you wanna, pass the time, talking while your kids are doing whatever they're doing. So I didn't know
Yeah.
if you had any like hacks over the years to sort of
Well, I'll tell you,
ingratiate yourself.
I am really good at it. Pick up and drop off where it's all moms and nannies and parks. I am really good. I think I've internalized. I can't even think of one, but it's just come up and say, which kid is yours? Oh, that guy's cute. Does he like to play ball? Does he do this? Where does he go to school? What are the where do you guys live? It's super easy.
Yeah.
I don't talk about sports and I don't talk about all that guy stuff. Whereas if with a group of dads, I'd be like, hey man, did you see that game? Or something like that. So I have to like quickly, I guess we all do that. Group dynamics, you figure out like, kind of like you're in the jungle. Who's my group? How do I talk to this person? How do I talk to this person? I remember when I was working in the workforce, I worked in cubicles. We all probably have done that at some point.
Yeah.
And I remember this is like 30 years ago. When I would go to a woman's cubicle, I would talk a little differently. Oh, hey, how you doing? Can I have that little thing? And if I go to a guy's cubicle, hey man, you got that? Can you, show me this thing? You already talk differently to different groups. So now it's just heightened when you approach a different group. But as far as the pickup line, you just talk about the kids and then you're in there.
It's a stranger in a strange land.
Yeah.
Has it gotten easier over the 12 years? Your kids are at school, people are used to seeing you. Do you find, the other parents are sort of more welcoming?
I was just saying that it hasn't gotten easier. I thought here 12 years in that it would get easier. No, it hasn't. It's gotten a little easier in the sense that I'm a known quantity at both my kids' schools. And the kids don't really go to playgrounds, but I was a known quantity at the playground. So that has gotten easier because I have a crew and they know I'm cool. They know I'm the first responder and I'm the contact to go to. So that part's easier. But in general, out in groups that I don't know, where I don't have a track record with them, it's the same. It like the needle hasn't moved in the past 12 years in our society that that makes it easier in that way.
Do you think anything changed from COVID? The sort of the way we worked in 2019, the way kids went to school in 2019 versus now. Has that sort of moved things forward for being a lead dad?
That's a good point. I'll tell you, I think that is easier now that all these meetings at the schools, all these, parent coffees. One thing is they don't call them mom's coffees anymore. They call them parent coffees. So that's nice. I appreciate that nod to the dads. So that has made it easier. Instead of me getting up and going to a cafe and rolling with 12 moms and all the awkwardness that's involved in that, if you just do a Zoom call, it's much easier. And I must do 3 or 4 Zoom calls a day for Parents Association stuff. And, it is easier. It's a little more... you're a little more protected behind the computer and on the Zoom call. So you know what? I think that might have made it easier.
So I tell this story. This is my third go around as a class parent. And I thought after the second one, I was done because, my 3 kids, 2 are very close in age and the other one's, a lot younger. And, I did one for the oldest daughter. And then of course the second one said, well, come on, Dad, you did it for her. You have to be the class parent for me. It's wait for it. It's not fair. And I was like, okay, fine. And so now my oldest daughter, who's in 6th grade, she asked me, she said, will you be the class parent? Now, as you know, because our kids are about the same age, our oldest are the same age. When you have a daughter who's a tween and she asks you to do something, you immediately say yes. And so I was like, sure, I'll be the class parent. And then it's like, oh God, what did I get myself into? Why did I do this? And we're on, like you said, instead of everyone being in the auditorium or whatever, and you're sitting around, you're doing it on Zoom. And the first Zoom, it was, the parents association. It's not like the moms association, it's the parents association. We have this meeting, and it's all the sort of middle school class parents, and we go around, we introduce ourselves, and then the person leading it says, all right, that's great, moms, so good to see all of you moms out there today. And I'm like, what is my Zoom not working? Is it not working? And it's like, and they didn't mean any ill will by it, but it just was sort of reflexive to say, all right, moms, let's go. So, and I felt like, pressing the button, like dad and dad and dad.
Absolutely. That is just never going to change. That's just human nature. Some things about human nature are not going to change. Women and children, moms, coffees, and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure, there's a word going around in the, maybe in the past 10, 15 years called microaggressions, micro inequities, right? In the workplace, You've heard that word.
Sure.
And this might fall into there. Like when I go out into the parenting world with moms and nannies, most moms are, all the moms are cool, everything. But there are these little micro things that happen, like no eye contact or some body language that shows that they're uncomfortable with me being there. And then the words they use, mommy and me yoga, mommy and me that, like that. So, and over time, I pick up on it, and it becomes it is a concrete thing, that the eye contact, the invites to lunches, or the tea, to come over to my house for tea. Of course, you're not going to get those invites as a dad. So I don't.
But I guess I don't. I would challenge on that. Like, this is what I want to do with the company of dads. Like, why not? Like, we're just parents. We're not coming over for something. It's just some sort of liaison. We're coming over to get together to sort of talk about our kids, to talk about parenting, to be part of this school community. And we're in 2022, yet it's still a challenge.
It is a challenge. I definitely have had some totally cool mom friends where I can go sit and have tea and watching kids play around in the middle of the day, and it's wonderful. But that's a minority. It's just harder to make that happen, because I don't know, it's hard to find moms like that. And I would happily do it with dads, but as we know, part of the reason for this, for your company, is that there's just not enough dads around to do that with. Of course, I'd love to sit there and have a beer with a dad and watch kids play. Sure. But you're right. In the abstract, there should be no barrier to that, because we're all just want our kids to have fun, especially when you have toddlers. It's so hard to get through the day before they go to preschool. You have these yawning 14-hour days. How am I going to take care of this, these two little kids? And I definitely had help from my wife's mom and from my mom and nannies and stuff. But still, I wanted to be the primary guy. So you still have to fill up this 14-hour day. It would have been so much easier to go and hang out with these moms, but it's just hard to make that happen. You have to find these unicorn moms who are like, yeah. And the unicorn mom has to have a husband who's cool. Like, oh yeah, Franco, you can come over and have tea with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I talk about the company of dads, I say the primary group is men who are lead dads. But I say, look, if you want to have senior female executives in the workforce, it's not really going to happen if they want to be moms, unless they have a husband who has a more flexible schedule, or a husband who's willing to be a lead dad. Talk to me about how you being the lead dad has, in a sense, benefited your family. It's allowed your wife to do what she wants to do. It's allowed you to do what you want to do. It's allowed you both to sort of, fulfill what you want to achieve in your lives. But how is you electing to be that lead dad early on? How has it helped the family unit and what your wife does for a career?
Geez, I think it's been huge. Of course, I don't know what the other path was. We could have completely outsourced it and staffed up, and I could have continued to work. But that's just not how I wanted to do my kids' childhood. That's not how my childhood was. My mom was at home until I was like 10. So that was on the table, like probably the third date with my wife. Like, look, if we get married and have kids, just want to look out in the future. You got your job better than mine. I'm going to quit and stay home. Is that okay? That was established very early on, because I just
and she said yes. She was like, okay, that makes sense. Or was that?
She said, yeah, that'd be great. And she's super fantastic. She wasn't weird about it. It's non-traditional. She was fine. So that was great, because I think maybe some people don't want that non-traditional family. But I think it's been great. I think having a parent at home, I don't know. I think it's very important and nice to have. You don't have to have it. I think another consistent caregiver would be just fine. As many of the families we know do that. But that's not how I wanted to do it. So it was all upfront on the table, and it's been wonderful. I mean, what a gift to be able to see every moment of your child as a man. That's very unusual in the history of humankind, for a man to do it all, like changing the diapers and going, taking them out and bringing them back to school and everything else. It's been fantastic.
Well, I'll say a friend of mine jokes that he said, being a lead dad used to be every man did it. And I said, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, like back in caveman times, like you had to take your kid with you, or else like some animal would eat your kid. So, and we laugh about that, how the whole protective instinct. When you're a lead dad and there's a brontosaurus coming after you, you have to take your kid. But you're right, it's just not. It's become, not traditional, and I think it's also become something like. Again, we're in 2022. I have 3 daughters. You have 1 daughter and a son. I think if my daughter wants to be the lead parent one day, great. If my daughter wants to work in financial services and go out and do what she wants to do, that's great. And so, how do we sort of normalize that conversation? I think you're in a unique position that early on, you and your wife actually talked about it openly. It wasn't something. It was a decision that you made together, correct?
Yeah, totally upfront. And the kids were born, I was 41 years old. So I had thought about it a lot, and I was ready to do this. It wasn't like something I was 22 and hadn't thought about. I had thought a lot about it. But back to your other point, I think dads being around the kids a lot really is how it was done for most of human history. I think the Industrial Revolution changed it. Back when we were all farmers working the land, or hunter-gatherers, right, we took our kids with us. The kids worked the farm with us, with dads, side by side. Industrial Revolution, we all worked in factories. There was a separation between the home and the work, maybe around 1800. That's when I think it changed. And that was one of the inspirations, I believe, of the Boy Scouts in the early 1900s, that dads should spend more time with their boys, because dads are going to work in factories. 100 years of that. They said, you know what? Dads have to go and teach boys how to be men. So let's create this thing called Boy Scouts. I'm pretty sure that was the idea behind the Boy Scouts. Being a lead dad is actually very natural. Taking your kids out with you, doing all the stuff you usually do. In our urban sense, that would be like going to the grocery, or going to the market, or getting some exercise. That's what it is.
Yeah. When you guys had this conversation, you made the decision together. As you said, you're 41, you thought about it a lot. But we talked before, what was it like those first couple of years? I mean, was it easy just to become the lead dad, or were there moments where, you missed your previous life, or moments when you were, you felt kind of alone because there you were, the lead dad in a world of mostly female caregivers?
Yeah, with the first 6 months, there was some elation. Oh my God, I can't believe that this has come to fruition, that I can stay home with these 2 infants and be their primary giver. It was great. But that quickly, after a couple of months, I started to lose my mind. I think all primary caregivers, men and women, do that. You feel isolated. You don't have all the measurable accomplishments and success and self-esteem that is derived from work. So that's all primary caregivers do, even the moms that are primary caregivers. But then I didn't have the support group. There was no dads around. It was really hard. So I started to get incredibly depressed just after a quick 6 months. Mm-hmm. So I talked to a bunch of people. So what am I going to do? This is not good for my kids if I'm depressed. So I said, you got to develop some other thing outside of caregiving. And for me, I revived my music career. I played trumpet. So I started a jazz quartet and a brass quintet to play music again. And then slowly, Paula and I built up this real estate portfolio that I can do and do the kid stuff at the same time. I can manage my own time.
I kind of have this image of you, like if somebody doesn't pay the rent, you show up at your trumpet and you just start blasting it away. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that would do it. I'd probably get some 311 phone calls, but I could try that.
But, and it's serious. I mean, you're not, just some guy who decided to take up the trumpet. You have a graduate degree in music. So music was a passion. I know. Talk to me about, how you got to come back to this thing that at some point in your life you pursued, you've been passionate about. Now you get to do it again with kids.
Yeah, it was a wonderful thing. I was very ambitious from age 14 to 26 to be a classical trumpet player. It brought me to New York. I wanted to play in the New York Philharmonic. Very ambitious. Practice all the time. It's my whole life. Then when I was 26, after doing it for a few years in New York and California, I was like, as a journeyman musician, you're always kind of skirting the poverty level. I couldn't handle that. I quit, went into software development. So for like 15 years, I was just a programmer and I managed programmers, software development. I didn't touch the trumpet for like 15 years until I was 41, 26 to 41. But then I had this opportunity. I said, I have to do something. I have to revive something that gets me out of the caregiving world, which is difficult for everybody. And I just started these groups up again. And New York is a place to do it. I mean, there's so much music here, so many consumers of music. It was a great gift. And it was wonderful to coincide with having small children. Because my philosophy, if you want your kids to do something, whatever it is, play piano, do well in school, read books, it doesn't really work to tell them to do it. You have to model it and show them. So I would bring my guys over. I still to this day bring my guys over. We set up in the living room since the kids were 6 months old, and we start playing, whether it's jazz or classical, and they hear it. They come get to know the guys. This is something Daddy does. This is something people do.
Yeah.
And it's good and it's wholesome. So I've continued to like model that with having rehearsals in my house. And I bring them to performances sometimes to see what Daddy does, which is very good. So Daddy's just not a changing diapers, he actually does something, and that's right. Good. So it's actually been a great gift to revive this at this time in their life, to model all these things. Like that's how I think. I'm no child psychologist, but how children learn, they model your behavior. How you treat your friends, how you treat your wife, what you do in the house, sure. What your hobbies are. So I think it's been a wonderful thing. I'm happy you asked about that.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like I just got asked about, chores and this interview. How do you teach kids to do chores? And I said, of course, you sit on the couch and you yell at them to clean everything up. And they said, really? I said, no, that doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. That's a stupid answer. No, what you do is, you do the dishes. You do the dishes, and then you get them to help you do the dishes. You load in the dishwasher. You get them to help you unload the dishwasher. And pretty soon, you've modeled this behavior. And it's, if you make your bed every morning and then you say to your kids, look, let me show you how to make your bed. And then you can ask them to make their bed. But if you can't be the messiest person in the world and yell at your kids to clean up their room.
Exactly right. Yeah. And it's an extra tricky dance too here in Manhattan, because we could probably find somebody to make all the beds and to clean all the dishes and to deliver our food, and we would never have to get off the sofa. So you have to say, look, no. Even if you have a housekeeper, no, don't do that. Don't do that. The kids are going to do this. I'm going to make my own bed. I'm going to show them. So it's a little bit, you get to turn it upside down. You have to keep the staff at bay if you have staff.
I love the image of this, like the Manhattan bed maker who shows up every morning at 8:45, makes all the beds, and you're like, what? And the kids are up in arms. You're like, what? Where's the bed? Just made? The bed maker had the day off, but it's
exactly. And we have cats. So you can get someone to come feed the cats, and you can have a dog walker to do all that. But do you really want to do that? There's a million dog walkers in Manhattan. But I think I make my kids walk the dogs.
100%. So I have my 3 daughters, we have cats. And so the oldest is responsible for cleaning the litter box and feeding the cats. The middle one is responsible for feeding the dogs and the fish. And the little one, because we live in Connecticut, so we have a yard. The little one goes out with me to pick the poop up, and that's the one thing I balk at, because I see some of my neighbors, they got the truck that shows up and they pick up the poop, and I was like, come on, can't we do that? And my wife's like, no, that's ridiculous. That's the most suburban thing I've ever. But I'm out there with the little one who loves finding the dog poop, and then I pick it up, and but teaching a lesson, Dad's doing it, Mom's doing it.
Yeah, and they have to see you picking up the poop too. I think that's very important. All these things I think I'm doing the right thing. I think it's important. But when can you declare victory as a parent? Do I have to wait until they're 30 and say, okay, I did a good job? I'm not sure. Do I have to wait until they have kids and tell me how I did? When can you declare victory?
Well, this is when Mitt Romney was running for president. I think he has 4 or 5 boys, and somebody asked him that question. He's like, "Yeah, I got to figure it out." I'm like, really? He's like, "Yeah, you do your best. You really apply yourself, and then you wait 25 years and you see how it turned out." So it's like, it's a pretty honest answer. It's a pretty honest answer. I have to ask, did any of your kids, either of your kids, did they get into music? Did either of them play?
Yeah, one of them, my boy Paul. He plays tenor sax.
Oh,
and he loves it. Victoria didn't really get into it, but Paul likes it. I think I'm not sure it's gonna stick. I think it's gonna stick. I have to get him into a band for the social aspect of music, which was very important for me. Yeah, so he's playing tenor sax now.
You just told him he couldn't play trumpet. Like dad's got trumpet. There can only be one trumpet player in the family.
That's too much head to head, you know. Like I don't think Tom Brady's having his kids play quarterback, right?
No. Talk to me about, one of the things I joke about it, but as I look back, I'm not, particularly proud of it now, but for the 13 years that I was a columnist for the New York Times, I was a lead dad for almost that entire period. And I always led with, I'm a New York Times columnist, even if I'm sitting at the pediatrician, I'm a New York Times columnist and I'm at the ballet and I carry my, and part of the impetus for the company of dads was COVID and lacking a community. And I said, I've got to create this community because it's what I want. I want to find a community of other men like me who are stepping up as lead dads, who are supporting their wives, and doing that, they're supporting their families. But, it was a big step to not be a New York Times columnist anymore. Tell me the story about how, you sort of came up with, and obviously you do own real estate, you have tenants. So this is not a fiction, but tell me about early days when you would be at these parties with your wife and you'd say you were a dad at home or stay-at-home dad, lead dad, whatever you said. And there was this moment where it didn't work versus when you started saying, oh yeah, I have a real estate portfolio. How did you feel the dynamic shift with those other guys you were talking to?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When I first quit to take care of the kids when they were born, I'm more of an open book. I just said, this is my job. I am a stay-at-home dad. And I switched, and look, I was okay switching my identity. I'm not a musician anymore. I'm not a software developer. And this is before I developed the real estate portfolio. I am a dad. And I would go out to these parties or wherever, social events, and say that. Now here in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, it worked and it was cool. Most of the time it was cool. But then these other more traditional situations, like meeting people in the finance world or in other countries, I would say it and I would get these blank stares and they'd be like, but what do you really do? And then I really quickly thought, okay, actually, I'm a musician, and I just do this. I help with the kids on the side. Quick pivot, really quick. And then when we bought our first apartments here in the city to be a landlord, that really resonated. If I said, oh, I own apartments, and then I learned in the finance stock, I own a portfolio. Then I was totally cool. Then we could talk forever about real estate portfolio stuff. Even though I was kind of the muscle, I wasn't like the one doing all the financial part of it. So I started out saying stay-at-home dad, but I quickly realized that doesn't resonate. And now I kind of know when to say it and what kind of groups it'll resonate with and when to not do it. I'm really good at that these days.
It's one of those things where, my hobby is golf. I like to play golf. And, until I left the New York Times to start the company of dads, now everybody knows what I'm doing. But before I did, I could never imagine sitting there having a beer after a round of golf and checking my email and being exasperated, saying like, oh my God, do you have any idea how hard it is to get a little girl into ballet in this town? Like my buddies, they would look at me like, what? I thought this was your first beer. Like, what, are you okay? Did you have a stroke? What happened? And it's just that moment where like, come on, we're talking about our kids. We're talking about our kids that we love. And, what better example are we setting than being able to sort of not be that bumbling dad, that sort of comic book dad who can't figure anything out. We're just the dad who steps in, and in doing that, we feel fulfilled. It's good for our family and it's good for our spouses.
Yeah. That was a surprise. And that was a little painful. The same experience you had where you go to a party, you go to like happy hour after work and you talk about your day. These dads talk about their work day. They talk about what they did at work. And you talk about your work day, which was changing diapers and pushing the kids around to the park. You just can't do it. they like, I got blank stares, walked away, lost interest. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to lose all these friends. And these are kind of new acquaintances. My other friends didn't care, but, and I just can't talk about that. You know, you really have to be careful who you're talking about your dad day with. Mm-hmm. And I think it's human nature. It hasn't changed. I don't think it's ever going to change. I would like it to change, but I think that's just how it goes. Men and women, they talk about different things. It's just, I had this same experience, and that's still kind of painful because you really do want to talk about your day. Sometimes a day with toddlers is incredibly exhausting, and you got to get it off your chest.
Sure.
So, you know, I call my mom and talk to her about it. She, you know, or someone who's willing to listen to it. Yeah. You know?
Now that your kids are 12, so what are they in 6th grade or 7th grade? What are they?
6th grade.
6th grade. Yeah. You know, I'm going to ask you the question that I always get asked, and that is, you know, well, what do your kids think about you being the lead dad? You know, is it okay? Like, what do their friends think, you know, that you're the lead dad? What would, and I'll answer it after you answer, but what would, you know, what do you think your kids think about you being the primary parent?
I think they are quite proud of it. They've never said they were bullied or made fun of or anything. I think they're quite proud of it, that my dad is the guy. Call my dad if you want to have a play date with me. I think they're proud of it. But, you know, if I were a little fly on the playground, maybe they would say something different. Now, you know, out of the mouths of babes come truths. I have heard when the kids were smaller, their friends saying, "What's your dad is what? What's your dad doing here? What? Your dad's what?" So I have heard it from their friends.
Yeah.
So it might be out there, but as far as I can tell, my kids are very proud because they think it's really unusual. And I worked extra hard as a parent and a class dad of doing all the activities and stuff. So I feel like I'm the cool parent. So I think they appreciate that. I work extra hard. It's kind of like someone who's disabled and they're on the, you know, basketball court. They work extra hard to to show their competence. And that's how this is like being a dad, a lead dad's like a disability, and you work extra hard to be the best class parent in the world.
You know? I try to be really nonchalant about it. Like I'm like, yeah, of course I'm the lead dad. Of course I'm here. And I just sit down because otherwise it kind of normalizes it. Like, how do I normalize this? And then it's like, all right, just like you, like I'll take on these extra things. But like my daughters know, like, okay, you know, call my dad. He'll get this organized and he'll, you know, I have control over my schedule. My wife has, like your wife has less control over her schedule. And so they're happy. I think for them, they're happy that they have a sort of go-to parent who can help them, you know, organize their little lives, which are super important to them.
Yeah, and if you're chill about it and you don't broadcast the awkwardness of it, then everything goes just fine, you know? Yeah. That's kind of my approach.
Franco, this has been awesome. I always give my guest the last word. So tell me, what some parting thoughts, some lead dad wisdom from 12 years of this in Manhattan.
My lead dad wisdom is there's no substitute for time. You know, you got to spend the time with your kids. I hope there'll be more dads out there taking on this role. And time is precious because now my kids are tweens and I can see them taking off and being around less. But the time spent, it's money in the bank when they're young. Whether you're a dad or your mom or a grandma or whatever, spend time with your kids.
Franco Finstad, thanks for being a guest on the Company of Dads podcast. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks a lot, Paul. This is great.